do it this way. All right, good morning. Well, it's so nice to see so many of you, and congratulations to the prize winners. Thank you again, Melanie, for organizing such a wonderful event this year. I always look forward to Assembly because it's such unifying our alumni with our current students is such an important thing, and I feel like it really happens at Assembly in such a meaningful way. So today I'm going to talk to you about amplifying our impact through engagement and collaboration. And to do that, I want to start with a couple stories, maybe just anecdotal. So not too long ago, I was at a party and someone asked me about my profession, and I gave a general response saying, well, I'm a planner with the city. And then they responded, oh, well, you must be so busy with all the different events the city plans. And I clarified, no, I'm an urban planner. I have a background in historic preservation. I work for the Landmarks Commission, thinking that was really going to get them back in the right mindset. And that was just greeted with a long stare. So I said, you know, like the Empire State Building. That got a vague nod. And then they asked me if I knew why the street parking on their block had been sort of blocked off for so long. And so, again, not exactly the conversation I was expecting, but as I hear you all laughing, I bet each and every one of you has a similar story. And the reason why is because what we do is so deeply connected to how we live and what enriches our lives. And we often forget how specialized and complex our work truly is. So again, another brief story. Recently, I attended a webinar where a member of our professional preservation community said, preservation's not a field. We're no longer a field. And I was completely puzzled by this. I was like, preservation's not a field. What on earth have I been doing? So what does that mean? And they didn't quite explain, but what I hope and what I think they were trying to say is that preservation is so much more than just identifying and protecting places with important meanings. Like, that's absolutely true. But that wasn't always the case, right? At one time, preservation was something very distinct. It was a structured system that revolved around treating the physical environment as a collection of objects in a museum. And now there will always be a role for designation, and the regulation of buildings and sites will always remain an important part of what we do at the local level. It's proved itself not just to be a helpful land use tool, it's a job creator, a catalyst for economic growth, and it's part of a sustainable development practice. But preservation has evolved so far beyond that, and I think we all know that in this room today. We know preservation encompasses a wide range of actions, such as a visit to a legacy business, like Ben was describing, or participating in traditions that have special meaning to us, sharing a favorite story about a grandparent, or sometimes just engaging in simple acts of public self-expression. And today we take for granted that the publicly generally agrees that preservation is a worthwhile endeavor. But we also forget the hard work it took us to get to this point. That said, not every community has benefited from conventional preservation practice. And because of that, we all know there's so much more work to do. But we can acknowledge the imperfections of the system while recognizing the progress we've made. In the last 20 years, there's been meaningful advancements in creating a more inclusive, diverse, and innovative field. However, the complexity of our work and how we engage outside our field remains a significant hurdle for us. And that is, we need to get out of our circle. We need to bring people in. We need to be better about explaining what we do and what we stand for. Preservation is not just an isolated endeavor. It's recording single points in time. It's a practice that interacts with the multidimensional experiences of humanity. So we have the potential to embrace new interpretations and perspectives, but often our fixation on narrow ways to measure the world limits our openness to alternative possibilities. It also isolates us as a niche concern with the public questioning, well, aren't there more important things in our community we should be worried about? But a common phrase we're all familiar with is that preservation doesn't freeze things in time. It looks to the future. And so one of the things I started thinking about was, well, and I know Betsy has thought about this a lot too, is we should be like the dynamic nature of history, not anchored to a period of significance that limits our understanding and diminishes what we strive to protect, but is always looking towards the future. So here's an example. If preservation doesn't freeze properties in time, we should more widely acknowledge that in our nomination process. National Register nominations can be amended, but it requires a nomination to undergo the same lengthy process that was required during the initial listing. We should develop a system where anyone is able to record additional documentation that doesn't require the nominating authorities to be the gatekeeper to that process. Instead, they should be facilitators to a simpler process. What do I mean by that? Well, after a property is designated, perhaps we should make it easier to submit amendments to account for new research, new meanings, new views on expression of authenticity. It would acknowledge how our resources change over time. Just like our views on monuments and memorials to outdated ideas and people, our landmarks change as we do. They evolve as we use them, celebrate them, or perceive them through a new lens. So for instance, in 1969, roughly 2 months after New York City designated Greenwich Village as a historic district, a pair of small, highly altered stable buildings in the district, operating as the Stonewall Inn, became the starting point of one of the most important events associated with LGBT history in New York City and the nation. The Greenwich Village Historic District would go on to be listed in the National Register in 1979. Stonewall would make it to the Register in 1999, and then it was designated a New York City landmark in 2015, and then declared a national monument in 2016. So the Stonewall Inn's significance is indisputable and was rightfully recognized as a site of a turning point in the gay liberation movement. What I think we should be reflecting on is how we could have simplified the process. Another example. In 1990, the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District was both locally designated and listed on the National Register, known in part for its remarkably intact rows of late 19th and early 20th century row houses. On the right here is 137 West 71st Street. It was also noted as a highly altered building in the designation report, but it was also generally known in the community as the James Baldwin Residence, the most significant surviving building in the U.S. associated with the celebrated novelist, essayist, poet, and civil rights advocate who had passed away 3 years prior. The property was designated an individual landmark for its association with James Baldwin in 2019, and listed on the register the same year. So while not as complex as the Stonewall Inn, I again wonder, what could we be doing as professionals to make this process less daunting? And I mention these examples to highlight while they initially lacked acknowledgement for their rightful associations, the process to document these additional layers of history had to be repeated over and over and over again. So the question I pose to you is if we are really to create a more accessible program that considers the multiple layers of our complex history, shouldn't we find a way to make the process more straightforward, at least at the national level? Now, a substantive change to the process would necessitate an amendment to the National Historic Preservation Act. I don't think any of us want to do that right now. However, I'm hoping for a solution that avoids legislation and provides communities with flexibility to record the significant histories of the significant histories that matter to them. By making our process less complex, we can also make it less mysterious and more welcoming. And I think we can devise a solution because working in historic preservation is not merely a profession. As we all know, it's a deep emotional commitment. And it takes a lot of people that care, a lot of time and effort to create meaningful change. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. So what other ways can we be agents of change? How can we as individuals transfer what we know, our ideas, our special knowledge as trained professionals, preservationists, to support others? How can we forge connections outside of our immediate field and dispel unnecessary perceptions of hand-wringing over paint colors that overshadow the bigger conversations we really should be having? Well, here's what I propose. I hope each of you will explore and match yourself with an opportunity to transfer your special skills and knowledge to others. As facilitators, you are all capable of creating environments where you can enable and support communication, decision-making, problem-solving, and collaboration. I propose this because eventually it will be up to all of you to guide our direction and bring others into the practice. So let us embrace your insights, your creativity, and your passion to activate the field and incentivize it in new ways. So how can you accomplish this in your everyday work, and where can you find ways to do this on a more personal level? Well, I hope these examples will inspire you. One option is through mentorship. During my time in the San Francisco Planning Department, we established an informal mentorship program because we just had an overwhelming workload to tackle. Some members with diverse training and experience were given the chance to work under supervision of preservation staff. We had transportation planners, we had public realm planners, but each one of them was sort of curious about what we did on a daily basis. So under the supervision of preservation staff, they were able to gain hands-on experience, and this approach not only managed our workload, but it fostered a better understanding of the work of preservation planners and really our place in the larger framework of land use planning. While some remained with our group for many years, others moved on to other interests, but each of them took with them a knowledge gained through that mentorship. Another example, at the New York City Landmarks Commission, we participate in programs like Ladders for Leaders, which offers opportunities for high school and college students to gain paid summer internships with government agencies. By participating in initiatives where students in this program actually select the agencies they want to be housed in, we can share our knowledge and explore the nature of preservation with them in a local government context. So as they're charting a course for their future, they again are taking that knowledge and experience with them. Another option is to seek out opportunities to engage and collaborate by volunteering, where you could partner with a community or share your own perspectives about preservation. Seek volunteer opportunities at places like volunteer.gov, where public land management agencies like the Park Service, Army Corps of Engineers, and the Fish and Wildlife Service post volunteer projects and events. As of 2022, there were over 450,000 volunteers contributing 10 million service hours annually. You are bound to find something that fits your interests and connects you with a broad range of people. In a recent search on volunteer.gov, I found a posting looking for guides on Amtrak between Santa Barbara and San Jose for the Anza Historic Trail, which I think would be a great opportunity to engage with a captive audience. Or seek out other grassroots organizations. So if there's a cause you care about, there's likely a community organization that shares your concern. Grassroots organizations need people that understand the law, real estate, bureaucracies, policy making, social media, and so on. So find an organization that resonates with you. And one of these many organizations that are working on, many of these organizations are working on open source projects as well. One example is the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. This society has developed an initiative for community gardeners to share their gardening histories and preserve their knowledge. They provide tutorials and workshops on oral history, web archiving, and digitizing to train gardeners how to document their own histories. This content makes up this initiative, which is the Philadelphia Community Gardens Memory Collection. It includes images, videos, and audio stories that help preserve the history of community gardening in Philadelphia and helps others understand the meaning and value of urban gardens. By training the gardeners on the basic tools for creating the collection, the project enables the community to participate in preserving their own heritage. And there's many other similar projects that are seeking assistance. So I did a quick internet search, and this is just a few that I found. The Quilters Save Our Stories project is the largest oral history collection dedicated to quilt makers globally. And since 1999, nearly 450 volunteers have served as interviewers and transcribers. And this team of historians has produced over 1,200 interviews with contemporary quilt makers. And these interviews are now permanently preserved in the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. Currently, they're seeking assistance to make the entire archive more publicly accessible. Another one, the mountaineering section of the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. I didn't even know they existed. They have an ongoing oral history project. Since 1937, the club has provided a place for DC climbers to share knowledge and climb together. They've been conducting a series of interviews with pioneering climbers associated with the club, and they need assistance in interviewing climbers, but also preparing audio and video guides. And lastly, my favorite, I'd like to mention Pasta Grannies. Many of you already know Pasta Grannies, I'm sure. The project originated when the creator was doing research for an Italian cookbook author, and during her research, she noticed cooking skills no longer being passed on to younger generations. So she started filming them and documenting their culinary expertise. This endeavor resulted in the creation of 2 of her own books, with the most recent one receiving a prestigious James Beard Award. And additionally, Pasta Grannies has amassed nearly 1 million followers on YouTube, and all of the videos showcase these remarkable women and their culinary heritage. But there is still so many other ways. Public events and workshops can play a crucial role in community engagement and advocacy. Look for organizations like Open House New York, an annual festival that opens hundreds of places across the city to the public. In addition to hosting talks and special activities, every year they need about 1,200 volunteers to support the tens of thousands of participants. Another example is the Black Gotham Experience, a project that I think exemplifies the power of pursuing a promising idea. Its creator was an educator at the Tenement Museum in the Lower East Side of New York when he was struck with an idea to develop a series of programs combining history and visual storytelling. And now he hosts a variety of events, talks, and walking tours that celebrate the profound impact of the African diaspora in New York City. San Antonio's Office of Historic Preservation organizes Rehabarama. It's a single-day service event held twice a year, bringing together low mod-income historic property owners, contracts, volunteers, and sponsors to accomplish work like painting and minor repairs. Participants contribute to the preservation of the community identity while working alongside property owners and tradespeople. And I think as you begin to engage with people around shared goals, I think you're going to be surprised on how you can inspire others to see themselves as practitioners of preservation. So a story of mine is I volunteer at a kitchen during special events at a local LGBT senior center. And during some downtime in the afternoon, we got on the topic of preservation. So this was my chance to redeem myself. So I emphasized our work is not just about buildings, it's also about the individual and collective experiences in the physical environment. And this time my message was much clearer. By the end of the event, one of the volunteers who's a professional photographer came over to me and said I gave him the idea of a project to photograph and interview senior center clients about living in New York and life at the center. So just one conversation, and he was already coordinating with the project with the center to gain permission and secure dates to set up the studio. So another impactful approach is to consider joining a board, commission, or committee. Your expertise in preservation offers a unique perspective that can contribute to policy recommendations and projects within your community. Cities are constantly looking for qualified candidates. Most preservation commissions and design review committees are led by volunteers, Cities often struggle to build technical capacity and ensure that those appointees are making defensible decisions. As a committee member, you can provide critical expertise that is sometimes lacking to help support staff and the fellow committee members. I would also encourage you, if you're interested in truly bridging preservation with other topics, think about other opportunities like a budget committee, a transportation, or a small business committee. By expanding your involvement, you can enrich discussions that showcase the interconnectedness of preservation with other aspects of community life. And, okay. Okay, sorry. Or consider participating in workshops and city-sponsored engagement activities in your community. Neighborhood planning workshops and events are an excellent opportunity to engage as a member of the public with fellow stakeholders and quality of life issues. Collaborating across disciplines can strengthen these ties and give communities a stronger influence to decision makers. For example, a recent workshop revealed that historic buildings in a neighborhood were magnets for public activity. Recommendations came out of that project to create a more inviting atmosphere for those buildings, widening sidewalks, removing parking, and adding seating. A great illustration on how the fields of public realm planning, transportation planning, and preservation can collaborate to achieve goals based on careful observations of the area and input from the community. So finally, I urge you to stay connected to the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. They focus on building strong local preservation programs through education, training, and advocacy. There are so many volunteer commissions and unstaffed preservation departments across the country, and NAPC makes it possible for those cities to be effective decision makers through their training programs. By engaging with organizations like NAPC, you'll expand your technical capacity, you'll gain confidence in a range of topics, and attend conferences and events like NAPC's Forum. It'll connect you with like-minded professionals, you'll learn from their experiences, and when the time is right, consider applying to become an NAPC trainer. You will make a significant difference in building preservation capacity in other communities seeking support. So the power to amplify our impact lies in our success to engage and collaborate outside of our circles. Sharing our knowledge with others is crucial for the future of preservation, and I again encourage you to embrace your insights, your creativity, and your passion to activate incentivizing preservation in new ways. So thank you.